it's not too bad because you can kind of group everything up fairly easily. It's good for AoE blinds, and then you can just get your AoEs and you can cleave the... Why isn't this... Are my abilities not working now? Buggy, son of a... Hey there, and thanks for joining me. This is Snow from the Guild Eden on Gandara EU. I'm going to be talking you through our run of Crucible of Eternity Path 2. So this is a follow-on from our first video, obviously, that we did, where we just kind of did it on the spur of the moment. The sound should be a little bit better, the video should be a little bit better, the gameplay will still be equally bad, but there aren't as many disasters as before. So, I'm going to talk you through it. This time around it is a full guild group. We don't have Maeve along. We've instead got, well, I'll tell you what, just from left to right, or from top to bottom I should say, we've got the Implication, who's going to be our greatsword and right-handed strength guardian. He's running, well, everyone in the group as far as I'm aware is running full Zerk, the exception possibly being our engineer. Now that is our chair friend there, that's Oreen Skyvaheri. He came along to help us out because we were lacking a fifth. Otherwise we have Losius Wayne, who is our greatsword and axe mace warrior, and we've got Kyla Mistblade, who's a pistol whip thief, I believe. As per usual, I'm going to be on my elementalists, that's me, hello there. I'm going to be running primarily staff for this, but I'll swap around a little bit. So in general, as we go through this, like a lot of these tactics are going to be stuff you already know, you've come across before. I'm not going to try and reinvent the wheel here, and I think people have been getting pretty good at running COE. But I'll go into some like small enough tactics that like the average like person who just farms this once in a very blue moon might not really have come up against. So let's see what we've got here. So first and foremost, in case you didn't watch the last video or you haven't seen the tactic before, if you can keep some sort of snares, roots, whatever on the champions and the other puppies back there, it increases the chances of our friend the agent getting through alive. So it's worth doing, because as long as she's not left completely onto her own devices in the hallway, you can actually get her through without having to kill that extra trash. So looking around at the group comp that we have, we've got we've got the engineer for a decent bit of Vaughn stacking, so he'll be grenading the crap out of everything. We've otherwise got a moderate amount of might, primarily from Aloysius and me. I'm not traditionally running a might stacking build per se, but I do have the trait to increase fire field duration, so I can give Fury when I do a blast finisher in a fire field. It's well worth doing. Now the thing to remember as well these days is, like, if you're running a full Zerk group, which if you're experienced in the dungeon, you probably should be, if you are running a full Zerker group, then your best friends are going to be, Might, Fury, and Vulnerability. So they're all going to contribute towards the group DPS overall. As you can see there, we got about 20 stacks of Might right off the bat, so it's going to lend towards some really nice burst, and I gave about 30 seconds of Fury. So as you can see, right away, we've got really, really tasty damage, and Elementalist spinning out and getting hit on the way back in. I'll edit that footage out. But yeah, as you can see, like if you've got the group kind of all contributing towards each other's DPS without directly going for some sort of support build, you can really, really bring down bosses quickly. I mean, it doesn't take too much effort to get 25 might in most group comps if people know what they're doing, especially with some sort of fire field down. So for the group that we've got, it's a fairly solid setup for this dungeon. I mean, a Mesmer would be nice because boon stripping is pretty important for some of these parts, but it's not the end of the world. So you're going to see Kyla with the other fiery greatsword. He's used to using that. I think there's a little bit of competition going on for who gets to use what. So whenever the fire greatsword goes down, there's like this race by all the Zerker people to pick one up and get them sexy numbers. Remember, it is your best friend. Like the elementalists, I know they've been buffed with more HP or whatever, but if you know what you're doing with fire greatsword, you're going to be a serious asset to the group, so it's well worth keeping an eye on. Now, so we're going to just cleave down this trash, that's fine. The one left over is my friend Mark K. Assault Golem, the one that gives me nightmares a little bit, mainly because of Bloodlust stacks. Getting down doesn't bother me, repairs are no big deal, but losing those stacks, it just makes me sad. So I'm not even going to risk it, I'm going to let them go and risk their bacon in the lasers, and in the meantime I'm just going to probably rejig my skills and stuff like that to get ready. Bitch about Assault Robot K. Now, apologies by the way while I'm narrating this if there's a little bit of like sniffling or anything going on. I'm a little bit under the weather here, so you have to just forgive me. I always agonize a little bit over utility skills, and you'll see me going for one that might seem a little bit untraditional in a moment. For the actual boss itself. The main reason I do this is I actually choose to take Conjure Fire Axe since the buff, because this fight's reasonably short. I mean, it doesn't actually last that long at all, but with all of the kind of, projectile reflects and light fields and stuff going on, it's really easy to miss out on a lot of might. So I need as many tools as I can, since Arcane Wave is my only on-demand blast finish without actually changing stances. I say stances, I of course mean elements. So what I'm going to do here is I generally bring it in, pop down a fire field with 4, blast finish with 2, and then just swap back to my normal rotation. Now if I was doing this a little bit more optimally, I would have opened with a fire field, then used Fire Axe 2, then used Fire Axe 4, then Fire Axe 2 again. But as you see, it doesn't make too much of a difference because the boss still goes down in fairly sharp time. The staff DPS, by the way, is... I used to mock people who brought the staff to dungeons until I tried playing around with this build, and it's downright silly. Like, you can see yourself, it's like a warrior's axe auto attack in many ways, if not a little bit higher at points. And once you get into the lower percentage ranges, then you start to see stuff like this, and things get pretty tasty. It's sort of invariable these days that the more boring a spec is, the more damage it tends to do. Grenade spam for NGs, just backstab spam for thieves, I suppose. And if, in my case, sitting in fire perpetually and just slamming down lava fonts on cooldown. No, because I nearly have 25 stacks anyway, I'm not really going to bother too much. I'm going to go ahead and just throw on one of my Bloodlust items and kill some robots. In the meantime, you're going to get to see us troll Aloysius Wayne, who's dying to get his perception stacks up. And we will, of course, take this opportunity to make him miserable by trying to kill the mobs that he's going to kill instead. So just in terms of going through dungeons quickly and all, we've kind of dispelled the myths now that you need, the 4 warriors and a mesmer or whatever. That's kind of gone. Most classes, if you build them right, can still do really, really crazy burst and really crazy damage. Bear in mind, I've got nothing particularly against condition damage. It has its place in the game, but PvE speedruns are not really it. It just doesn't synergize as well with all of the other stuff. I mean, it doesn't benefit from vulnerability. Fury has very little impact on it unless it's like a Doomfire spec, or I suppose if you've got Earth Sigils running and things like that. Again, all it is going to do is add a few more bleed stacks or burning or whatever at most. If you can bring a fully Zerker group, I highly recommend it. If people know what they're doing, you're not that squishy. I mean, most bosses die quickly enough, it's not really a big deal. And these days I've started to go more and more towards offense and less towards the defensive side of things. Speaking of, for those of you running Scholar Runes, this is mostly applicable to Elementalist. It'll still affect other classes, but Ellies kind of have a bit of a raw time of things, because as the lowest toughness and lowest, base health group out there, we're fairly squishy. I think that goes without saying. But if you're running Scholar Runes, which you probably should be for making the most of your DPS, you gotta remember, like, one of the good things with us is Ether Renewal is a great Condi remover. It's short cooldown, it's a lot of healing. The downside of it, of course, is the fact that it's channeled, but if you're running Scholar Runes and or Water 10 and you want to keep your health over 90%, the best thing you can do really is, channeling Ether Renewal for a second or two and then cancelling it if you don't anticipate any other big damage coming in the next 15 seconds is going to be a lot more useful to you, rather than swapping to Water and getting locked out of fire for 15 and really gimping your damage for the sake of some heals. So, don't completely forsake your other attunements, but don't go over the top for the sake of keeping yourself over 90%. Now that goes for pretty much everybody. Like, not everyone has the same issues. Guardians share a tiny health pool, but it's not a big deal because they have the base armor increase and the fact that they've got, resolve and various other things ticking away in them perpetually, so they just passively fill up a lot sooner. Not to mention Focus 4 giving them regen and stuff like that. Alien Fire, unless you're running Signet of Restoration, which you shouldn't be, isn't really going to be much good. Now here we're just going to Shadow Refuge up to get rid of the spooky ghosts and see about getting this boss down. Now, in terms of the people in the group, like, again, not everyone is used to running Zerker. I think some people are still getting used to it. We don't force people to do it by any means, but it's preferable. You know, the stuff just dies a bit quicker. So I believe, as far as I know, Aureen there is usually Condi's, but he swapped for this to help us out. Now you'll see as well, the numbers there is from Burning Retreat, just stacking up on top of the boss and casting it on top of him. It's like a mini Fiery Greatsword. So we're just gonna pew pew through him. No colossal amounts of fail this time. It's always refreshing after the last video, which made us look tremendously bad at PvE. So in general, yeah, I mean, you're gonna see a lot of stuff cropping up in dungeon videos and stuff online. I think people need to be like, don't be too quick to discount these Zerker builds just because you think, oh lol, I'll be one shot. You won't be if things are done properly. And if you are, it won't matter because stuff is dying so quickly, the odds of rallying are quicker, you know, the fight isn't going on as long, so survivability doesn't matter so much. So there's tons of builds. Every class out there can pump out serious numbers if you know what you're doing with your spec. So it just takes a tiny bit of research to find that out. So we've got a lot of good people in the guild, thankfully, so they've kind of figured this stuff out pretty quickly. A lot of them are coming from other MMOs, which breed a mentality of adoring that number porn. I'm one of those, unfortunately. I didn't think I was going to get much of it when I was playing my Elementalist, and I ended up making a Greatsword Warrior during the Great 100 Blades era, just to see some shiny, sexy numbers. But these days, every class I'm playing, I can pump out fairly decent damage on if I want to. And usually without completely sacrificing utility, which is nice. Not to mention the fact that you get, you know, there's benefits to buffing the group with DPS stats. It's like, that's utility as well, and that's something that gets forgotten about. Condi removal is brilliant, obviously, it's always going to be useful, but there's no downside to giving your group lots of Fury and Might and putting lots of vulnerability on the boss. That's still you supporting things. Effectively, I mean, if you're ending the fight 2 minutes faster, then the extra healing and regen stuff you would have needed during that 2 minutes is completely moot. So that removes the necessity rather of all the support stuff. Now, when you're doing this fight, by the way, don't forget, like, you can kill the Raise of the Thorn patches reasonably easy with most classes. The goal is just to focus on bomb golems. A lot of groups leave 1 or 2 people running around permanently clearing the thorns, but that's just unnecessary. It'll go so much quicker if you just leave folks to do it. You see the implications somersaulting around there and getting pimp slapped out. But don't forget to tag the boss, whatever you're doing. It's easy to get caught up and forget. Now, the husk isn't too bad as long as people aren't being idiots. My major fear here that I always have is that every run normally some charming, delightful person takes it upon themselves to knock a bomb golem into me. I think that's just showing the true love of my guildies. And usually it's when I've hit 25 stacks of Bloodlust and just makes me sad. So here you're going to see me freaking out mildly because I'm terrified that thing will kill me. And you'll see everyone begging for the Fiery Greatsword. So we're going to go ahead and get some might ready to go. And then it is Fiery Rush time. So if you guys have any questions about builds, or if you want to talk about maybe increasing your damage through a new Zerker build or anything like that, I'm far from the expert in the field, but I do know the builds pretty well for most of the classes. I play a little bit of everything, and I'm a huge fan of my theory and stuff. So otherwise, if you are interested in coming along for more dungeon runs, if you want to see more content, or if you're interested in joining up in the guild, having a bit of crack with our crazy bunch of maniacs, then you can feel free. You can whisper Reina in game, the name's going to appear in a second in the credits. Otherwise, you can go ahead and contact us either on the website, so eden-guild.com/forums. So like, subscribe, and see you guys next time.